President Trump's path to 270 continues to narrow as more election results come in. Joe Biden has overtaken the president in Pennsylvania and in Georgia. He's also maintained his lead in Arizona and has slightly increased his lead in Nevada. President Trump has accused Biden and Democrats of trying to steal the election with no evidence. He's already filing some lawsuits to stop the ballot counting in some states. For more on this, I'm joined by Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan. Well, CBS News has learned that President Trump is going to continue pursuing his legal options, which is likely going to extend this anyway. Talk to us about what some of those options are and what are the likely chance that it could potentially change the outcome of this race?
At this point, it doesn't appear that the Trump campaign has been able to substantiate any of these claims of fraud in any of the states. The FBI has not backed that up, neither has Homeland Security. And at the state level, there is still counting being done. So you don't have official results to challenge yet. You have a trend in the voting that the president seems to be objecting to. And so it seems, and I'm saying seems because we haven't heard from his legal team, but it seems like they are trying to sow doubt in the results and ultimately litigate a different outcome from the tally. For a state like Pennsylvania, which is so key because it has 20 electoral votes, and just to remind you, CBS projects that Joe Biden right now is about 253 electoral votes. So if he were to win Pennsylvania, that would put him at that magic 270 number. For the state like Pennsylvania, they're still tallying mail-in ballots, and in particular, they're still tallying ballots that were sent in from overseas from members of the military. They have until November 10th to do that, those military ballots. So calling for a halt to voting or counting of those votes may not actually be in the president's favor, and I don't know that he would want to disenfranchise members of the military from their legally cast ballots. So this idea of just generally casting doubt is uncomfortable for many Republicans who have said, that they want the vote to be counted properly, but they have stopped short of echoing the president's claims.
We know that the president doesn't need to concede in order for the peaceful transition of power. But how might that play out, Margaret, if the president, in fact, doesn't concede?
Well, this is something that would be unprecedented. Up until this point, candidates, even when they have a contested election, like we did, for example, in 2000 with Bush v. Gore, where it ended up being decided ultimately by the Supreme Court because of those discrepancies in Florida, you had both candidates say that they would respect and accept the decision of the courts. And really call for faith not to be shaken in that process. So for one of the candidates to not just dispute what appears to be the outcome, but to also cast doubt, to undermine institutions, it is really new territory for us as a country. So the president is not required to be gracious. It's just sort of the precedent that's been set. What we know is that the law is clear, that whoever gets to that position by getting the set number of electoral votes of 270 and is inaugurated on January 20th, that they become the president as of 12:01 p.m. So whatever powers the president currently has would be transferred by law at that hour, and it would be up to the Secret Service to enforce that transition.
It would be, as you say, unprecedented, though, for that to happen. All right, turning now to the balance of power in Washington. Democrats were hoping for this big blue wave. That didn't happen. They lost seats in the House, even as they're going to maintain a majority. Republicans, it looks like, are likely to hold on to the Senate. We're still waiting on some results there. Did the Democratic Party go really wrong in its messaging and outreach to voters in its effort to flip seats blue?
I think this is one of the important conversations that Democrats are having privately right now, and we're going to have it Sunday on Face the Nation with Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. He is a Democrat, but he's in a ruby red state that's stuck with President Trump and really has his finger on the pulse of working class America. That's the demographic that Joe Biden said he was uniquely qualified to bring back into the fold of the Democratic Party. Working class America voted for Barack Obama. Then white working class America in particular tried out President Trump in 2016. So Joe Biden said he was going to bring them back into the Democratic Party. For a long time, the working class was the backbone of the party. And so that's going to be an interesting conversation for Democrats to have, to say, where did we go wrong in the messaging? Why didn't we see, in the midst of a pandemic that has been really devastating to large parts of this country, why didn't we see that return in the numbers that had been projected? I do want to note that you did see a really a raising across the board for both parties of those who've signed up to become new voters in this election. And for Joe Biden, he will owe, in a number of these key states like Georgia, his potential presidency to college-educated white women in the suburbs, but also to Black Americans who showed up for him. And so those are constituencies that were there. It's that working class backbone of the Democratic Party that seems to be not there in the way that Democrats had projected.
Yeah, I know that the Biden-Harris campaign really invested a lot of their rhetoric in trying to win back, particularly white male working class voters. And while they turned out more for him than they did for Hillary Clinton in the last election, President Trump certainly won them by a much greater margin. All right, Margaret, last question. What's on tap for this weekend's Face the Nation?
We are going to be flexible because we are trying to follow the news and to react to it, to bring our viewers the latest. We will have Anthony Salvanto, who has been our number cruncher, our pollster and guru, and who said clearly last Sunday that it was entirely possible for President Trump to pull off a victory by getting that surge in day of voters. We want to press him on matching his projections to reality, particularly with that predicted blue wave in Congress. We will also have, as I mentioned, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Pat Toomey, Republican from Pennsylvania, who has made clear that he sees no signs of any kind of malfeasance in his state when it comes to the vote. And we will, of course, not abandon what is a massive story, and that is the spike in coronavirus. We are well above 100,000 infections per day in this country right now, and we can't lose sight of that.
Yeah, you've been so good in your show on always keeping on top of that every single weekend. Margaret, thank you.